Good evening, Patriots. Thank you for joining me once again. I hope you are all well. It seems to be just lately that there's another event every day. And yesterday we had the incident. Incident is an understatement, isn't it? In Manchester, where a youth, a diverse youth, broke a policewoman's nose. And now we have people protesting everywhere because he was dealt with in a manner that was appropriate considering his horrid behaviour. But unfortunately, we have nurtured a section of society who do believe that they have a right to behave as disrespectfully as they can, and that somehow they are entitled to get away with it. They are not. Now, we know that there are reasons that these barbarians have been unleashed upon Europe. It is people further up who are encouraging this in order to create mayhem, to destroy what we have, to destroy our culture, to destroy our societies, our identities, because they are globalists and they are using these barbarians a little bit. I see them as myxomatosis and wither rabbits, and they've been unleashed to just multiply and wreak mayhem amongst us. And the only mistake that they have made is that they have overestimated themselves and underestimated the rest of the population. The behaviour we've seen, especially since October last year, would have been the type of behaviour I would have expected when they reached around 15 million, something like that. There are distinct patterns of behaviour below 5%, 5 to 10%, 10 to 20%, and over 20%. And it seems to be the same pattern in different countries. But for some reason, since October 7th, they have been allowed to get away with their support for a terrorist organization, for their blatant disrespect of us, of our society, aided by a woke, inadequate police force, definitely in London. And this has possibly led them into a false sense of security that they feel that they can get away with anything. Well, they can't, because the majority are about to explode. This is already happening in Germany. If you look through the news articles, you may notice that news from Germany is conspicuous by its absence. We're not hearing anything, but there is information out there if you go and look for it, and I urge you to do so. Following the video I made a couple of days ago about this message that was the British should open their homes to asylum seekers, there has been an absolutely huge response. It's come from several sources. What really shocked me was that it was backed by a former Conservative cabinet minister. This indicates just how far the Conservatives have fallen, and those few who are still left in Parliament are no longer Conservatives. The best thing that Suella Braverman could do would be to walk away and just allow the rest to just merge with Labour, because they are much of a muchness now. Now, it's been quite interesting reading through the comments. I've tried to reply to as many as I possibly could, but with the comments everywhere, both on YouTube and on Facebook and elsewhere, it's been hard to keep up. There's only been a handful of toxic responses. I do like those because it indicates that I am striking a sore nerve. But ultimately, What does concern me, having watched how our successive governments operate for well over 40 years now, 50 actually, to be honest, because it's ever since I was a youngster that I was watching what was going on. And from early on, I picked up on their bait and switch method of doing things. And this is why what I saw being released about the British public should open their homes to them rang alarm bells. I can tell you the first step that they will take, and that is using existing laws, and that is that they will pressure landlords to take them because, as you may be aware, that you can't unreasonably refuse to rent a property to people on benefits. I'm sure that they will actually revisit that law, but keep in mind that the process has been illegal immigrants who are criminals because they have arrived and entered our country without a passport. That is a crime punishable by 6 months in prison. Rather than go to prison, they were rewarded with new phones, hotels, accommodation, spending money. I think some of them have even been bussed out for days out to football clubs or wherever they've taken them. And now, just as Rishi managed to get at least some deterrence, some threat in place, not ideal, but what is the option when people come from countries that we cannot return them to? We either keep them here or they go to a third country. Those are the only two options, unless we drop them over Iran and Afghanistan and these other countries and just push them out of a plane with a parachute. We don't really have any choice. And Starmer, in his determination to show that he's a man, scrapped the Rwanda deal straight away. He didn't even leave it there as a threat. And the next step was to allow the 120,000 criminals who we are now saddled with to claim asylum, whereas the law previously had been changed, preventing them from ever applying for asylum in this country because they had entered illegally. Uh, Previous experience indicates that out of those 120,000, anywhere between 70 and 90,000 will be granted asylum, if not more. Who knows? They then will remove them from the hotels, but they need somewhere to live, because if they just leave them out on the streets, if they just literally kick them out, there will be mayhem. I do think that the first step will be that landlords will be pressured to take them, and what local authorities will do after they have been distributed all around the country by Angela Rayner, apart from where her friends are, and of course nowhere near Gary Lineker or anybody who works at the BBC, of course. Then local authorities will assist them to rent properties to put them in. How many thousands of rental properties that are badly needed are going to be taken up by criminals? On top of this, due to the draconian measures against landlords, there is a mass exodus from the rental market. And whilst many people may be cheering, the problem is this, that many people who rent possibly could not or would not buy, even if there were more properties available, for a number of different reasons: their relationship status, their job status, their future plans, the fact that they don't have any money. It could be any number of reasons. Rental properties are needed, but we do not have a housing crisis. We have a population crisis. And if our governments actually enforced our borders and cut down the numbers of people who head for this country and removed the hundreds of thousands who are here, because I don't believe that there's only just 120,000 illegals. I think there's many more than that. And I believe that many of them are surviving on delivering food or many of these underground industries, there would be enough homes. There is capacity on brownfield sites to build many homes. There are 670,000 empty homes in England alone. We could house our population and we could get through this. But the steps that Starmer has taken now is going to make it worse, much, much worse. But what worries me is that from the way that these successive governments work, is that a mere suggestion becomes a request, that becomes a demand, that is put into law, and then people are punished for not complying. How this will pan out, I don't know. I'm not saying that we immediately face the same prospect as that province in Germany where they literally turn up at your door and insist that you take them in. That went badly wrong. But I do believe that they will encroach on rental property, HMOs. There will be anywhere that they can push them in, and if necessary, they will pressure people who already live here out of these properties to house them. I believe that they will also go through many properties in social housing, council housing, where the occupant, there are more bedrooms than occupants, and I believe they will start to remove these people. That's the way they will go, because what they have done now is they have opened a can of worms, and it is or will be absolutely catastrophic. Let's just check the messages here. And good evening to you, sir. So this is the start of something really, really serious. But because we are so close to the edge, struggling with the cost of living, struggling with accommodation, whether it's anything from a room to a house, be it rental or purchase, we have falsely overinflated property due to 15 or so years of ridiculously low interest rates that created the perception of greater affordability. And suddenly, a year or two ago, it was payday and interest rates went back, not high in comparative to historical rates, but as compared to the loan to interest rate ratio over the last decade and a half, they are horrendously high, because for many people, interest rates are now 2 or 3 or sometimes even 4 times what they were paying a couple of years ago. And that's already unaffordable. There are landlords out there who are paying more in interest and tax because of the changes to tax laws as well than they are receiving in rent. And some of those landlords are desperate to sell their properties because they are slowly going bankrupt, paying out more than they're receiving each month, but maybe struggle to sell them because the courts are backed up and they can't evict the tenants to sell the property. And one of the obstacles to selling these properties is the buy-to-let lenders. The reason the AST, or assured short hold tenancy, is 12 months does not come from the landlords, it comes from the lenders. Most buy-to-let mortgages stipulate that you cannot rent the property out for more than 12 months. And therefore, if you rent a property, if you're somebody who's renting long term and you rent a property in January, it takes you a couple of months to settle in. And a Section 21 can be issued 2 months before the end of the agreement. You're only, by the time you settle in, you're only 8 months away from your next Section 21. Okay, so the knee-jerk reaction is abolish the Section 21. Then what landlords do, taking that into consideration along with all of the other factors that have made life difficult for them, they are selling en masse. And 20% of properties coming to market at the moment are ex rental properties. This is people who are just saying, I've had enough, I'd rather sell. And many of these properties will end up in the hands of the banks. For those of you who are not aware, Lloyds Bank declared a couple of years ago that by 2025 it intends to be the largest landlord in the country. If you look at the way banks have behaved over the last few years, who do you think the banks will give priority to in their rental homes? Do you think that the shift to housing associations and the banks, who will probably be renting them out through housing associations, will alleviate the problems for people already living here and struggling to find a home and start their lives? Or do you think that they will actually give priority to, if you like, legalized criminals who have come here with one intention and one intention only: to plunder as much as they can? And if they are not given it, they will take it. The vast majority of these people have no intention of integrating, and they will never integrate. All they will do is wreak havoc throughout our country. And this is something that really concerns me, and it should concern every single last one of you, because this is catastrophic for our nation. You may be aware that the first batch of criminals to arrive across the channel after the election came in a yacht that they stole. So now they have effectively taken matters into their own hands, and I don't know if they paid a nod to the traffickers or not, for allowing them to steal that yacht and get in it and sail themselves across. I don't know what happened there. I don't know any details. All we know is that the yacht was stolen and they came over on board, and now they are another batch of people who are going to be permitted to claim asylum and have all of the handouts and all the help that the rest of them are entitled to at our expense, yours and mine. Here's a few figures that will make you think. Probation visits, face-to-face visits for criminals who are on probation. So they were criminals by arriving here, and they have committed crime since they have arrived, and they are on probation. Just in the last year, it's 12,800 face-to-face visits, which has cost £623,000. The cost for translators for these criminals who have broken the law, so that's translators for them in courts or in police interviews or wherever, amounts to a staggering £24.6 million. That's just in the last year. And any time now, there is every possibility that Keir Starmer will actually sign an agreement with the EU, which will involve the UK taking a quota of their illegal immigrants. Once that channel is open, then effectively that then is the pipeline for continued and increasing numbers to arrive every day, every week, every month, every year, year after year. How much of this can we possibly sustain? Whoever they may be, wherever they're from, we simply cannot sustain these numbers. We have too many here already. In a perfect world, we would shut the doors and we would literally check every single person in this country at every opportunity, and everyone who is found to be here illegally should be then taken into secure accommodation until they can be removed from this country. Every illegal immigrant, every migrant who commits a crime should be removed from this country. If we do not or dare not adopt this attitude, then sadly we face a situation where the parasites will effectively suck the life out of the host. I appreciate it's an unpleasant term of phrase, but it is the truth, and that is what will happen. One thing that we have seen in the last couple of weeks, and I don't understand what basically spurred them on to do this, was that on one occasion a boat was turned around and taken back to France. It proved that everything that Reform UK have been saying about our legal right to return them was correct. And not only that, the French never said a word, because I'm sure that they know the law too. And if it were the other way around, they would not hesitate to turn them round and drop them our way. Already, they literally dragged them out to the edge of our waters and effectively just hand them over to our free coastal taxi service, who bring them in so that they can then receive all of their gifts and their accommodation and everything else that they get as a reward for being criminals and entering this country illegally. There must come a point where we not just object to this, not just respond with anger, but that we respond collectively, effectively, and decisively to stop this once and for all. Those people in the House of Commons do not have a true mandate to dictate to us. We have a government who has received one of the lowest shares of the vote in history. They received less votes than Corbyn did in 2019, and he received less in 19 than he received in 2017. This is a government who only received 33% of the vote. 67% of those who voted did not want them. Polls suggest that of those who were registered to vote, who are registered to vote, 80% of them do not want these people. And yet, with just 33% of the vote, they have 66% of the seats in Parliament, and they are free to unleash their Labour lunacy upon all of us with ridiculous proposal after ridiculous proposal. We've seen that Starmer is not only an idiot, but he's also treacherous. So perhaps he's not as much of an idiot as we may actually initially perceive, certainly not taking his treachery into account, unless, of course, it's not all his idea, because he has basically set up Angela Rayner to fail, and fail she will. There is absolutely no way that she is going to oversee the building of 1.5 million homes in 5 years, as Kemi Badenoch joyously pointed out to her the other day in Parliament. She has been bestowed with a poison chalice and this target, and she was told, go sell it, Angela. And at that point, they had been in power for 2 weeks, and 1.5 million homes translates to 800 houses built and completed every week. We're now tomorrow at the end of week 3, so she's 2,400 homes behind schedule already. The backlog will continue to increase, and there will come a time in a few weeks or months, who knows when, where the backlog will be so high, as will the pressure on her be so high, that she will have no option but to resign, and Keir Starmer will be rid of her without having to dismiss her himself personally. Let's see what actually happens. But if these houses are not going to be built, and keep in mind that they're not being built for you and I, then where are these people going to go? LRM, are you going to the rally on Saturday in London? I'm not sure. I'd like to. I really, really would. I have my flag ready. Um, but it's a time factor. But I am hoping to make the time to make it down. I believe that we all need to make it down. Um, I do hope that it will go okay, especially in light of what is going on in Manchester and Rochdale. I'm not sure if there's anything going on anywhere else in the country. I've had a very busy day, so I've only literally had fleeting glances of news updates, but I am sensing yet more social unrest, and I just don't know how far it's going to go. And as you are aware, that where it is those who wave our national flag, the attitude from the police and the media is completely different to the days when our streets are full of barbarians brandishing their flags of terrorism. So let's hope that it does go okay, because people must speak up. Uh, LRM, all patriots marching and the movement is growing. I completely agree. And it is growing at an alarming rate, alarming for those who are the facilitators of this treachery that we are all witnessing, that's striking fear into every single person who loves our country, loves our culture, and loves our way of life. Sarah Robinson, Starmer wants us to move them into our homes. I believe so. Obviously, the the um, the articles that I saw. Obviously, if I see something that's on social media, then I just take it as a cue to go and search elsewhere. If we take the article that was in the Telegraph, it was worded: the British public should, yes, should open their homes to asylum seekers. I think something like that, wasn't it? And as I said, a suggestion becomes a pressure, becomes a mandatory, which becomes then punishment for not complying. What they will do and how, I don't know. But as we all know, desperate people take resort to desperate measures, and they are now desperate because they have opened Pandora's box. They have simply now resigned themselves and committed themselves to unleashing near on 100,000 criminals on us, the British public. We don't know anything about them. We don't know where they've come from. They came here illegally. They're criminals. They're liars. They're predators, and we won't know where they are. And they will be coming to a town or village or beautiful place near you soon. Is this really what we voted for? Or rather, how many of us actually voted for this? This is where we need to isolate the facilitators, the BBC, Sky News, the lefties, your Gary Linekers, all of the woke brigade. But this collection of treacherous, mentally disturbed, treasonous people are only the minority. And yet, for some reason, the majority feel that they can't speak up against them. I understand if you work, because this is the degree that we've got to, because people wouldn't listen 20 odd years ago. And now, if you work in the civil service, if you work in one of the major banks, if you work in the NHS, if you are a teacher, if you speak up openly, your job or your bank account or both are at stake. This is where we have reached. This is the point that we have reached. If somebody were to tell you that we would be at this point 20 years ago, you would have laughed at them, most of you. But the reality is, I'm sorry to say, that people were saying this 20 years ago, and most people did laugh. Unfortunately, look where it's got us now. We do not have time to waste. We need to make a collective decision. Do we want to save our country or not? Do we want our culture to be destroyed or not? Do we respect or love or want to protect our borders, our sovereignty, and our beautiful nation state or not? If we do, then we need to seek out all those who are actively and with malice aforethought doing their level best to destroy it. And we need to do this before it's too late. Let's hope, which is going to be a no. Agree with you. Okay, and is the next one LRM? LOL. He can do one. I ain't taking no fighting age men into my home. They are sociopathic, bought and sold by the WEF lunatics. I'm afraid you're right. And as I said, it may sound like a over dramatic analogy, but I now see the barbarians as little more than the WEF's version of myxomatosis and We're the Rabbits. That is how they are being used. And they are fanatical enough, disturbed enough to actually think that they are on some mission, but their mission and the mission that they are being used for by the WEF do not actually correlate. They are not parallel paths. They are simply useful idiots. But unfortunately, along the way, they are being given the tools, the opportunity, the support, the backing, the power to destroy our beautiful nation state. And we must fight back. And as I said, we have one of the worst governments in history, and that is actually saying something after 14 years of another bunch of useless globalists. And our country is in grave danger. In fact, the whole of Europe is in grave danger. Some parts of Europe are even further ahead in the road to ruin than we are. And if we want to look into a crystal ball, we need only look around some of the states of Europe. And one or two are resisting, but Hungary and Poland in particular, and pressure on them has been increasing, but they have been responding with equal hostility as that incredible woman did when she spoke out in the European Parliament last week. The Polish government, following armed attacks because the barbarians arriving on the border of Poland now are not satisfied with just trying to climb over the fencing. They're actually arming themselves with spears and throwing them over the border, over the fence. And a few weeks ago, a Polish border guard was killed by a spear, which then led the Polish government to pass a law permitting Polish border guards to use live rounds against illegal immigrants, which is absolutely the correct thing to do. They have a right to protect their borders. They have a right to protect their country. Poland is not to be messed with, and I wholly respect them for doing so. We need to fight for our country, and I'm up for it, even if it means as a female, I will fight for it physically. Um, well, all credit to you. All credit to you. What concerns me is that I'm not picking on anybody in particular. I'm talking as a society, we have allowed over the last decade or two, because it's not just now. When did the grooming begin or come to light? For example, we have allowed successive and incremental increases in abuse, in predatory behavior, violence, grooming, rape, you name it, against women and young girls to be increasing at an alarming rate. And if any of you think that this is just an isolated group of perverts and misogynists here or there, I'm sorry to say that you are gravely wrong. This is an orchestrated, evil, and premeditated assault on our culture, our society, and our way of life. Women have been fighting a battle to reach where they are or were before things began to deteriorate for 15 decades, or all going back to the Married Women's Act of 1882, where women, for the first time, married women were actually individuals in their own right and no longer the chattels of their husbands. The start of an honourable but hard fought war. It took another 4 decades for women to be able to vote, another decade for women to be able to vote on equal terms with men, 3 or 4 more decades before the Equal Opportunities Act, 67, was it? Something like that, you know, the one that I mean, and so on and so forth. And now, are we really going to be bullied into turning a blind eye when savages arrive on our shores and disrespect women and girls in our country? Because as I see it, every society that does not respect and or protect women has fallen. They are doomed to fall. We have reached morally such a great place, even though we're not perfect and we have a long way to go, and we still have uh, um, horrendous a horrendous amount of domestic abuse and coercive behavior and so on and so forth, which is the reason for me personally that over the last decade I have been doing my utmost to promote awareness of Clare's Law. But what good is Clare's Law when 8% of the population have arrived here just in the last 5 years and the police have no clue who they are? How are they supposed to actually detect if these people have a history of violence when not only do they know who they are, not only do they not have a clue who they are or where they came from, but even if they are guilty of any offence since they have arrived, it probably won't be mentioned because they have this damned obsession to hide the criminal behaviour of the migrants from the rest of us, which is why our country will not publish crime figures based on ethnicity or origin or place of birth or anything of the sort. We know why they won't do that. The fact that they don't speaks volumes as far as I'm concerned. Uh, yes, I saw that. I've been passing your channel and details on to other patrons. Thank you very much. Firstly, while I remember, I do apologise that in the last 2-3 days I have been extremely, passionate is one word, over the top, because this has really upset me. It upset me when I saw the article about them, the mere suggestion of us being pressured into taking them, because I know how they operate and I need to tread very carefully because, as you have probably guessed, apart from referring to some numbers that, occasionally I like to just reel off what I have to say from how I feel and my own experience and my own knowledge and research, however limited that may be. Because what matters to me is, for example, is that if I can inspire enough people to take this seriously, then that would be a wonderful thing. If I can inspire a large number of people to take this seriously and stand against it, I will be over the moon. Um, if you've been following me for a while, I've had quite an eventful 2 3 months. I live in a place called Kingsthorpe Village in Northampton. I'm a local parish councillor. I love what I do. I love being a councillor. Why I love being a parish councillor is because it's not political. We're a lovely group of people, including me, but we're a lovely group of people. And I can say firsthand, when we meet once a month, we're all thinking of what can we do to help the community. It's so wonderful, even though we're limited on what we can do. And that's great. And it's really nice. Then I stood in the general election for reform. And dear God, I'm so used to actually pleasant interaction online, whether I'm talking about current affairs or on my property channel, whether I'm telling people, giving people my opinion on heat pumps or buying or selling or mortgages or stamp duty, whatever it may be. It's always a pleasant interaction and it's great. And people contact me and ask me advice and phone me and thank me and so on. And all of a sudden, I was just public enemy number one to many people, but not to all. And the number of people who gradually surfaced who were supportive, passionately supportive, was actually absolutely amazing. It was beyond amazing. It was emotional. And what began as my personal, I don't know what the right word would be, my personal mission to just rant and just tell them all exactly what I think of them. You might find that surprising, but I do tend to do that. Suddenly became a war on behalf of all of these people who are at their wits' end, who are upset, who are struggling with their home, who are fearful for their own safety, for their children's safety, for their children or their grandchildren's futures, people who are older, who are petrified that a Labour government can and may very well make excuses to plunder what they have because have unfortunately, a bunch of people in power who are running on resentment, on hate, on treason, and contempt for our society, our flag, and our culture. And that makes a very, very dangerous cocktail. So to actually stand up and voice my opinion for these people was a privilege. And in fact, even when all of the crap started appearing about me, things I've never heard of, and I thought, I don't remember ever saying that. I don't remember ever posting this. And then it got to a point where actually I was thinking, taking it as a compliment because it meant that I was beginning to encroach on them and striking fear into them. And that meant that you have been making progress, and that has worried them. The problem is the fact that we have worried them has probably pressured them into acting so hastily. If you've noticed, from the minute this lot have gone in, they have been announcing one ridiculous idea after another in haste, ill thought out, unfunded. And the question remains, where will the money come from? That is what concerns me, because every time they open their mouths, they are committing the Treasury to millions more, whether it's pay deals, whether it's asylum seekers, whether it's agreements with Europe, you name it. And all of this is unfunded so far. Or is it that we don't know where they're going, plan to get the money from yet. You may have noticed over the last few days, they have accelerated we didn't realize the country was in such a bad state. We didn't realize that things were in so bad. We didn't realize there were so many pitfalls, so many problems. This is laying the foundations to scrapping every promise they made before the election and going for everything that they can get from anyone that they can take it from. Did I miss this one? Sorry, I can't remember which one I've missed now. I'm so sorry. Right. Okay, I think this one was next. Sorry. Me too, Sarah, being a woman too. Um, us women need to get together and fight. Absolutely. But you shouldn't be fighting this on your own. We should be fighting this with you, for you, collectively, all of us. Um, my ancestor is Grace O'Malley. She fought as a woman, and I'm going to follow that. Oh, don't apologise for being passionate. It's what is needed. Yes, but it's a fine line between coming across as passionate or just coming across as just being. I don't want to appear that I'm here to hate anyone or to inspire hate. That's the last thing I want. I just want us to be able to live in a peaceful country. I want us to be able to go back to how things were years ago, back to our sarcasm, back to our piss taking, our British humour, our British way of life. We can't say anything anymore. We can't laugh at anything more. I don't find comedians amusing. I don't know if it's them or if I have just aged prematurely, but I love the days of the proper British comedians, the proper British humour, the days when you could sit in a pub with somebody and call each other an idiot all night long while you're buying each other a beer, and then you would have chips and curry sauce, and maybe have a rough scrape on the taxi rank, and the next day it's all forgotten. That seems to be a world that has slipped through our fingers because I don't recognise the world around me anymore. So glad we have someone like you standing up. I'm trying to do my best. I really, really wish that I had done better in the election. Yes, of course. Don't get me wrong. It would have been such a huge privilege to have made it, to have been an MP, to have actually been able to have parliamentary privilege. Imagine me with parliamentary privilege asking each one of them, who I suspect of being a closet pervert, what they were doing the day before, for example, because I find it I don't know if I find it amusing or if it just angers me that, for example, for a party, Reform, that has grown so rapidly, managed to get so many people together so quickly, and in essence, we've had 3 or 4 people. Probably we may have had 1 or 2 who joined specifically to sabotage their seat. That may well have happened, but let's not forget the contribution for Hope Not Hate. I think the title's the wrong way round. We are talking, if you do some research into Hope Not Hate, you will be aware that the person behind it smacks to me of somebody who was a prefect, bullied at school, grassed everybody, wasn't liked, has other issues, maybe needs a big car. I don't know. I never said that. And now he actually gets his fix by literally just trying to cause problems for people who are doing nothing more than expressing their rightful opinion in a country where people gave their lives for us to be able to do so. And Reform did so well, and it could have done better. Don't forget, thousands and thousands of postal votes went missing again. Why do we have postal votes in this day and age? If any of you have completed your own self-assessment, renewed your passport, or checked your pension, and you've logged into a .gov account, you know how secure it is. They send you your username normally in two parts on different days. Why can you not just log into your .gov account and cast your vote securely? Why does it need to be done by post, which is unreliable? It is unsecure, sorry, and it is open to fraud. We saw what happened with the election when Galloway won. We saw that people were effectively following the postman and bullying the people into completing their postal vote there and then and taking it from them to post it themselves so that they could get the candidate that they wanted. This is the direction that our terrifying sectarian politics is taking us, and that is terrifying. Um, Taxpayers' money, agreed. Yes, 1970s. Yeah, and so much has gone wrong since then, and it is coming from all different directions. And I'm concerned at the perverted pressure, especially on children, primary school children, things that are being drummed into their heads. I don't know if any of you have children of school age. My daughter has been grown up for years now, but I was I was literally monitoring everything because she was special needs and I needed to, because she was vulnerable. But when she got to 18, then suddenly I couldn't protect her anymore. I could protect her, but only I had no right to protect her. And it's in my quest to do all I can to guard my daughter, if you like, where I actually came across Clare's Law. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because there is nothing that is more more obscene and more vile than a predator who preys on the young or the weak, or the vulnerable. And if it were my child and they were drumming these perversions into her head when she was 8 or 9 or 10, as they do now, I really don't know how I would have reacted, but I certainly would not have kept quiet. And the 80s as well, yes, absolutely. You were robbed, not getting enough votes. It doesn't matter. Every vote was wonderful, and as you are aware, um, I am making a stand for democracy. I'm not criticising the party or the policies. I stand behind them completely, and I have every confidence in them. It's not about that. But I have a bee in my bonnet, and I fervently believe that not just here in Northampton North, but throughout the country, I want every single paid up supporter to become a voting member, and I would like the voting members to vote in the candidate. In that event, I would be happy to stand again, but I would endeavour to do all I can to ensure that there are other potential candidates, because I don't want to be the default candidate. The people of Northampton North and everywhere deserve the best person for the job. I don't care who it is, male or female, I don't care what race, what gender, or what age, the best person for the job. And provided those voting members elect that candidate, I'm more than happy. It would be great if I were elected, but if they elected someone else, it would not change, except I would be supporting them and helping them in every way that I could. Um, and I hope that that does happen, because we do not have time to waste. I don't think that this bunch of amateurs will last 5 years or 4 or even 3. Um, I believe that they have set themselves up for so much political mayhem. The next election may very well be sooner than we think. We were caught out last time by Rishi just calling a snap election, denying us, who came from a standing start with no team, nothing, absolutely nothing, the time to get around our constituents, to campaign properly, to raise some funds because it's horrendously expensive and we all had to pay everything out of our own pockets, which we were happy to do. Uh, we need to campaign from now. We need to ensure that all supporters feel included. We need a unified and inclusive and organised fight, because we're fighting a war here and we're fighting for our country and we're fighting for our way of life. Absolutely, Chris. Couldn't agree more. Every father should have the right to protect their children. I completely agree. But it's actually becoming harder to do so because we're at the point where you're questioned if you disagree with the narrative in the education system, and I disagree with that. Um, so it was. I know I found it difficult. My daughter went to, if you're from Northampton, she went to Northgate School, which was a school for special needs. It was a hard decision because I really didn't know what would be safer for her because she was borderline. But at that time, so this would have been 2008, I think, somewhere around there, 7 or 8. The schools had just changed to back to 2 tier, so secondary schools went from 800-900 to 1,500 or more pupils, and I knew that my daughter would just be bullied and she would have a horrible time in a mainstream upper school. So she went to Northgate School. They were very, very good, but their attitude was not one of discipline. It was one of just giving some sense of normality to children who struggle. That wasn't ideal for my daughter because she was very strong in character, uh, very, very smart, very calculated, and everything everything she did in life was almost like playing a game of chess. It was strategy. I don't know where she got it from, but ultimately she ran circles around them. And I would actually contact the school and tell them she's being punished for doing this and this. Please do not allow her to listen to music, because being a special needs school, they had something called an angry room. So if you were angry, you could just leave the class and go into the angry room where there was facilities to have a drink and whatever. So my daughter was angry all day long listening to music. And I would emphasize it to them. She's being punished. Do not allow her to listen to music. And their response was, Mr. Antonio, we have a policy of ignoring bad behavior and rewarding good behavior. Wasn't very helpful. So on one occasion, because when they do something wrong, then it's us as parents that get the phone call as though it's our fault. And one day when she had done something wrong, rather than taking my usual approach, which was apologetic, I simply responded, that's not my problem. I'm following your policy. I ignore bad behavior. I reward good behavior. She got up, ate her breakfast, and got to school today. Once she gets to school, what she does is not my problem. Thank you. Bye bye. But it shouldn't be like that. It needs a unified effort. It's very, very difficult being a parent, and I don't know how people. I had just the one, and she's been an adult for 12 years, and I'm still tired. So I don't know how people manage when there's 2 or 3 of them. Really, I don't. Okay, sorry to diverse again. Chaos is coming, but we're not going to let them make us stand down. I am very, very happy to hear that. Absolutely, I am happy to hear that. And next, I've been in special needs, been bullied in mainstream school. I definitely struggled too. Turns out I was autistic. Well, I struggled in school, and I struggle with attention. To be perfectly honest, you've probably guessed, haven't you? That's why I need you to pay attention, because sometimes I forget what I've said. Um, Although it does get interesting, because most of the time, even I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth next. But so there are benefits. It's absolutely fine. Having said that, ultimately, what really matters is that we look after our society, we look after our children. And I have been watching this progressive assault on the morality of not of our young, um, the sexualization of them, and so on and so forth. And I am sick to death of it. It's beginning to turn my stomach. We need to protect our children. And when I say our children, I'm talking nationally as a nation. Our greatest asset are our children, whether they're ours, the neighbours, our friends, families. They are our children as a nation. They are our future. I appreciate that youngsters can be testing. You probably are aware that's in their nature. But there was a time not that long ago where children went through adolescence and went through the normal pattern of boys one day picking up a brush and suddenly with sweaty hands asking, young Jane if they can hold her hand while they roller skate or walk home or whatever it was. And even though going through adolescence, teenagers are angry with the world and everyone around them, but when we look back on it, it was natural and it was innocent and it was beautiful. Whereas now we have perversion being drummed into our young children from every direction. And it's bad enough at what they are being bombarded with online, but to have the type of thing that has been enforced on them, uh, to happen in schools, this we cannot stand by and allow this to continue. We must say enough is enough and leave our children alone, because it is our responsibility to look after them. We do have an issue with our falling birth rate. We do have an issue in how we're going to look after an increasingly aging population. But anybody who is under the misapprehension that flooding our country with barbarians who despise us is going to help alleviate that problem needs therapy, because what we are doing is exacerbating the problem, because the dependence on the state and on those who work and contribute to keep those who do not work and simply take is making things worse and worse. At what point will we reach a situation where we will literally not be able to live for keeping the predators who are descending on our green and pleasant land? So that's all I wanted to say for tonight. I think I've said enough as it is. Um, I wanted to share this with you uh, because I am happy, even if you disagree with me. If you would like to take the plunge and join me live and have your say, please feel free, WhatsApp me on this number. I'll get back to you and I'll arrange to send you a link so you can join me in a future live stream. Because ultimately, um, I'd like to hear what you have to say. I'd love to give people an opportunity to have their say. Um, and even if you disagree with me, that's perfectly okay. Although I would request that you're not offensive in how you speak for everybody else's benefit. And on that note, I think I will call it a night because I haven't stopped all day. I would like to thank you all very, very much for joining me. Thank you for your comments, your support. Not sure about Saturday. I will let you know tomorrow evening how it's going. Hopefully, I am preparing to go, and I'll check the train times from Northampton. Northampton's our our link to London can be very unreliable at times. But anyway, having said that, hopefully I will make it. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, what's left of it. And hopefully I will catch up with you at some time tomorrow. Thank you. Bye bye.